All right, everybody. Whoops, I need to get rid of that little thing. Okay, so I'm going to do something. I don't know if I've done this before. It's possible I've done this before. Something tells me I may have done this before. But I've been wanting to do this for a while because there's a couple of verses that keep coming to mind. Uh, we're talking about the Gospel of Thomas. So, if you're not familiar with the Gospel of Thomas, let me tell you a little bit about it. The Gospel of Thomas is, it's been a long time since I studied the history of it, but according to what I remember hearing from some historians that the Gospel of Thomas may be the oldest of the Gospels. It is also, if I read my research correctly, it may also be the source for all of the other Gospels that were written. And so, as you know, it's not part of the modern Christian canon, which means it's not accepted as a legitimate source for, as in terms of Christian doctrine and belief. But my experience is that actually, there's only one verse that I ever talk about, and you hear me talk about it on the channel, and that's where Jesus is going through some village and some guy runs out and says, teacher, I want to follow you. I want to be your disciple, but let me bury my parents first. And Jesus supposedly says, let the dead bury themselves. If you're not prepared to desert your family, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your friends, if you're not prepared to desert everything for me, sacrifice everything for me, you're not worthy of me. To which the guy was very upset, and he hung his head and he went back in because he chose to follow tradition and bury his parents. I've talked about that. That's really the only verse of the actual Christian canonical Gospels that I like. And that's because I believe that in order to truly live, forget about the spiritual life, to truly live, you must be willing to sacrifice everything, including all of the love of all of the people in your world. You must be willing to have everybody reject you. You must be willing to sacrifice every relationship. You must be willing to walk away from everybody if you are forced to make a choice between living for your soul, making yourself happy, or living for other people, or living for society. So the Gospel of Thomas has some really great things in it. Now, let me be clear, in case you're new to the channel, I'm not a Christian. I was not only a Christian, I was a minister. I was one of those guys that preached on the street. I did, I was an evangelist, and I was an exorcist, and I read the Bible I read the New Testament in Greek, all that kind of stuff. So I was hardcore fundamentalist Christian. I'm not anymore. I haven't been for many decades. Well, not many decades. There's only so many decades a person can live. I have not been a Christian for decades. And so we are going to be reading from a gospel that is supposed to be seen as Gnostic. Gnostic. The Gnostics. And so let me address that a little bit. I have some videos where I talk about my view of Gnosticism. And if you think because I identify as a shaman and as an ex-born-again Christian, if you make the assumption that I'm going to sit here and tell you, no, the Gnostic Gospels were the true Gospels and Gnostic Christianity was the real Christianity, and if you think I'm going to do that, say that, you are very wrong. I think that Gnosticism in and of itself, even the pre-Christian Gnostic movement, I found it to be very disempowering, the exact opposite of what I search for in my spiritual path, which is self-empowerment. So if you think that I'm going to read this and I'm going to tout the Gnostic, whatever their propaganda is, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do, I haven't read this in a long time. What I am going to do, I haven't prepared. I am simply going to read each one of the verses, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts about it. And it is my hope, although it doesn't have to be, it is my hope that I'm going to say some things that you may not have even considered. But what the heck does that mean? And I'm going to take it from my perspective. And so instead of telling you what my perspective of spirituality is, I'm going to use these verses to do that. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm also going to read some verses and go, I don't know what that means, and that means nothing to me, or that's ridiculous, and I'll probably just bypass it. So I'm not treating this with any reverence, but there are some things about the Gospel of Thomas which I really find. I really enjoy the explosive nature of it. It's really clear why this was not, the Gospel of Thomas was not used in its original form and put into the Christian canon. And the reason for that is because it is not a religious text. It destroys religion. Christianity is a religion, and religion means, the meaning of the word religion means to bind up. And that's what religion does. It takes people and it binds them together and it puts them in a box. And you have religious dogma and you have religious practice. And if you're not part of the club, then you're not spiritual. And so much so in Christianity, I'm not even hyperbolizing. If you don't believe, forget about what you do. If you don't believe what they believe, you will not only not go to a place of eternal life, you will be tormented forever for just for one thing, which is not choosing to believe what they all believe. Islam is the same way. A lot of other religions are the same way. And that's what religion is. It binds together. It's prison. You're being bound up. This text I find very explosive, and I find it to destroy religion in a lot of ways. So we're just going to get right into it. And bear in mind, this is a question and answer. So as people come on, if you're new to my channel, leaving your comments and your opinions, I'm happy for you, but it just makes for a pain in the ass time for me. I have to scroll through them, and I look for the questions. So the two things that I like to interact with on my channel in the live stream is ask me an honest question. That means a question that you don't know the answer to that you think I might. That's why I say honest. And write the word question in all caps so that I can see it, and then write your question in regular script. And the other thing that I like to see is honest feelings. Honest feelings are good because that, lots of times your question, I will start to slice your question apart trying to find the honest feeling behind it. So if you just have an honest feeling, I encourage you to share that as well. So honest questions and honest feelings are welcome. The rest, at best, I'm going to scroll past. All right, so let's just go ahead and get into it. This is the Gospel of Thomas, supposedly written by the Saint Thomas, the Doubting Thomas, according to Christian lore, which again, I'm not a Christian. I don't buy into any of that. I'm here saying, well, I'll save that for later. But the idea that the Doubting Thomas was the one disciple who didn't believe that it was really Jesus, and he wanted to put his finger into the hole in Jesus' palm, which right there tells you that historically it's off, because crucified people didn't get a knife through the palm. Because if they did, then the weight of your body would pull, you'd pull right through. You'd tear your hand open, and the nail would just go right up and out. So they would put the nail right here in the wrist. So even that, the hole in the hand, there was no hole in the hand. if you got if you were crucified with nails that went through your wrist. Anyway, we won't get into that. I'm getting off topic here. So let's get started here. This is the Gospel of Thomas. Here we go. These are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke and Didymus Judas Thomas recorded. Number 1, and he said, quote, "Whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death." All right, let's start there. That seems pretty straightforward, but we have to define, what does death mean? I have a different idea of what death means. For me, I am firmly of the opinion that we are eternal beings. We are souls. We are eternal souls. We happen to be having a human experience because our eternal souls have chosen to put on this meatbag virtual reality suit, which contains a brain and a body and a nervous system, in order to stay in this virtual reality 3D experience we call human life on planet Earth. So anybody listening to me, you're not going to die. You are a timeless being. You're immortal. So nobody here is going to die. Even if you physically, your meatbag, three-dimensional virtual reality suit, even if that falls apart, which it will, there's only, there's an expiration date. Everybody's got an expiration date inside your DNA, and if you go buy something from the store, right? This doesn't have one. Maybe it does. Does this have an expiration date? You buy something from the store and you look at it and you look for the expiration date, or what they say here, the expiry date, which is weird because that word sounds strange to me. I'm in Australia. It's an expiration. What does expiry mean? An expiry date, whatever it is, January 22nd, 2022, you have one inscribed in your body, so stop trying to live forever. It ain't going to happen. Your physical body will expire. But your soul is not. So what do they mean when they say whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death? Doesn't mean you won't die. It doesn't mean, or it doesn't say here, now if you're a Christian, you're going to look at this and you're going to think, oh, that means that I won't go to hell. Oh, that means that I'll go to heaven. It doesn't say that. Now, this is really important. Somebody, long after I was a Christian, I read somewhere that the Gospel of James says nothing about Jesus. The point was being made that that's not a Christian gospel. That when you take it and you read it, you project onto it all kinds of things that aren't there. And I can't remember the exact thing. It's something about there's nothing in the Gospel of James that says X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, I remember reading that. And I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, he's right. I was projecting onto that the whole time. So most people in Western society, especially if I tell you that we're reading from a gospel, even if I call it a Gnostic gospel, and I say, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death, you immediately project onto it, oh, I'm going to go to heaven. Oh, I won't go to hell. Oh, I won't die. It doesn't say that. It doesn't even say you won't die. It says you won't taste death. So let the actual words talk to you there. What does it mean to taste anything? If I'm drinking my tea here. This is a non-caffeinated, spicy, cinnamony tea. So I taste that. So what is it like to taste death? You can be walking around your physical body and taste death, experience dying from the inside. So if I interpret that as how I've experienced my continual awakening, if I say my awakening, you think that one day I woke up and no. I mean, for me, it's a continual process. It's a process. So when I think about my experience, my process of continued awakening, There have been times when I've tasted the feeling of emptiness, the feeling of shame, the feeling of not feeling worthy, not feeling loved, feeling disconnected. You know, you can taste all kinds of things. So I've tasted that. Tasting death is when I have been disconnected from my soul, when I have not been living in my integrity, when I have given myself away trying to please other people. Whenever I do that, I taste death. And I've said before that I believe that is the nature of illness, all kinds of illness. Cancer, heart disease, pick it. It's a result of the body exhibiting one's separation from their own soul. So I have a pretty lofty belief which I am not attached to. I am prepared to not be correct about this. I'm trying to stay humble. I'm trying to not get locked into a dogmatic way of looking at things. But my experience is that speaking for myself, when I live from my soul, which means I do what makes me happy, when I make my personal happiness, which is not the same as my entertainment or the same as my ego, what we would call the ego, but when I live for, you guys hear me talk about it all the time, my soul desire, then my body has access to all of its energy and all the energy surrounding it, and my body is healthy and happy. But if I have unconscious issues, unresolved pain, anger, sadness, confusion, or I'm trying to live for something other than my soul, my experience is that I start to have physical problems. My experience and my observation with people is the same. So far, every person that I've encountered who has had some kind of major illness or died of a major illness, when I think about it and I analyze it, I invariably come to the realization that I find what it was that they weren't doing that they wanted to do. The conflict within them between what their soul wanted and what they thought they were supposed to be, or what other people wanted, or something like that. My experience is when I analyze it, that's what killed them. The illness was just the symptom of the inner death they were experiencing. So even those people, anybody, you can pick anybody, the worst person you can think of. Even Hitler, Hitler has a soul, and Hitler's soul is somewhere, and he's, who knows where he is? I don't know where he is. He might be in the underworld, he might be reincarnated, but everybody nobody's going to die. That's the nature of the universe in my experience. So when they say, whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death, I take that to mean they will not feel that death, the pain, the sadness, the emptiness, the futility, all those horrible feelings that most people walk around with to some degree. All right, let's keep going. Second saying, Jesus said, quote, "Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and reign over all." That's got to be one of my most favorite sayings of anything that's ever been said. Because, like I said, this is a text that destroys religion. And what is the sales pitch of religion? Just take this pill, just pray this prayer, just follow this teacher, just become one of us and you'll be saved. Christianity, perfect example. Christianity is based on intellectually accepting a belief that if you choose to confess and believe that Jesus is the Son of God and died for your sins and rose on the third day, you will be saved, meaning you will go to heaven. Doesn't matter what you do. He'll forgive you. He died for your sins. It's just like the Matrix. People watch the Matrix. This is why, there's this resurgence in Gnosticism. Because Gnosticism, the Matrix is Gnosticism, period. It is. It's just a movie about Gnosticism. And it represents where people are now. I mean, QAnon. QAnon is another form of Gnosticism. We could debate on, what they believe, but the essence is the same. It's that you're being lied to. You live in this evil place called Earth, and there is a bad God. You want to call him the devil, you can. You want to call him the demiurge, you can. And then there's this good God that's above that, and we have to transcend beyond this dark, evil place to get to the good place, or the good thing. And so you tend to say that the earth is bad and heaven is good. And that's the Matrix. These people are in a dream that's being, it's a computer program, and they're being run by the psychopathic machines that have no empathy. And, if you take whichever one it is, the red pill or the blue pill, I forget which one it is, you take a pill and then magically you're woke. If you pray this prayer, you'll be saved. If you follow this teacher, if you believe this, you'll be saved. And that's not what this character in this named Jesus is saying. It says you should not stop seeking until you find. Which means you don't take somebody else's word for it. This is one of the main themes. So whenever you talk to a religious person, again, I'll use Christians as an example. So a Christian comes and knocks on your door, I guess after the pandemic is over. They come and knock on your door and they're carrying a Bible and they say, hey, I would love to tell you about the love of Jesus. And can I share with you, whatever. At some point, they're going to open up that Bible and they're going to say, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. God loved you so much that he killed and murdered his son so that you could live. Now, you're supposed to then engage with them in a discussion, even an argument about what that verse meant. And you will lose that. But that's what they're designed to do. That's why they walk around with that book. It's literally, they hold it in front of them. Because they are creating their assumptions. And they give you their assumptions and you accept the assumptions. Now you start arguing with them about what the verse means. And that's when they own you. But the thing you should be saying is, well, but I don't believe that that's the word of God. So you're going to have to use something else. And they won't have anything to stand on because then what they say won't make any sense. But if you buy into their assumption that the Bible is the Word of God, meaning that that is ultimate truth and all we have to do is figure out what it means, then and you start saying things like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would God put his own creation into hell forever just because of a mistake of identity? Because that's what you're saying. If I don't believe in Jesus, I'm going to go to hell. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Would you talk to your kids like that? I mean, we would put people in prison if they acted like that. And then they flip open the Bible and they say, God's ways are not man's ways. God's ways are like idiocy to the average person. In other words, we can't understand God. We can't hold God to our standards. And if you've bought into the idea that the Bible is the Word of God, there it is right there in black and white. Now, once again, the Christian says, so this is what God says, that he has a different standard than you, and you can't understand him, and it looks like confusion to you, or whatever the word they use. Unless you say, yeah, but you forgot. I don't accept the Bible as the inherent word of God. So that verse is just a really convenient way to gaslight me out of my honest experience with the universe. well, God made the earth in 7 days. No, actually, we know from radiocarbon isotopes that the earth is however many billions of years old. Where's that? Your Bible's obviously wrong. Unless you have bought into you've taken their pill. So that's opposite of what this is saying. They're saying you should keep seeking until you find. I mean, you can't take somebody else's word for it. Some people, like lots of times when I come on here and I'll say something outrageous or something that other people haven't said, and people don't realize that they have these assumptions, and they come and they leave their comments and they say, prove it to me. Like if I say something to the effect of that, whatever it is that I say. And they say, prove it to me. And then I'll ask, well, what would you consider to be proof? And very often I get the response, well, give me an ancient text that says that. And I go, oh, so you just take other people's word for it as long as it's really old. So a text means a human being sat there with a pen or with a quill or with a something and wrote down something. And the older it is, as long as it was written by a human a long time ago, you'll accept it. But if I say it in the same time frame as you, that doesn't have any weight with you. So bottom line is, you're still taking other people's word for everything you believe, which is what Christians do. They say, no, the Bible is the inherent word of God, or the Torah, or the Quran is the ultimate word of God, and this is what tells us what to do. Well, this is what God said, and so you're just taking somebody else's word. How do you know they're speaking for God? You have to accept somebody else's definition of reality. And this is not what this guy says here. And here Jesus says those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. And then he doesn't say those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. And when they find, they will automatically go into the state of bliss, and everything will be wonderful and there won't be any problems and love is light. No, he doesn't say that. It says those who seek should not stop seeking until they find, and when they find, they will be disturbed. You will not like what you find. It will mess you up. And this is the shamanic experience. That those of you who are following the 90-day challenge and you're on level 1 or level 2, and you went into this because you hear me talking about it, and you went into it because this is the way we all work. You want the power. And you started experiencing the power, and then all of a sudden you started having all of these feelings. All these feelings are coming up. I mean, I'm happy to keep saying the same thing to my apprentices, but they keep asking me the same questions that I asked. How can I get over this feeling? How can I not feel this way? How can I move past this? And I said, who said you're supposed to move past it? Who said you're supposed to stop feeling it? I never said you're supposed to stop feeling it. When did you get the idea that I was going to tell you you didn't have to feel anything? No, in fact, I've been telling you the opposite. When you find, you will be disturbed. Even the idea of coming to the realization that you are God is very disturbing. That is, you have nothing to fall back on. There is no devil out to get you. There is no God looking to save you. You are God. There's a reason why they put people to death in times past for saying that. I mean, part of the reason is because you start talking like that, and then governments have a hard time controlling you. So it's kind of hard to control somebody who's self-determined. But it also, because if you start to walk around, another example. When I tell people who want to come onto the channel, and I wish I could do something to change it, but it's just the way it is. I attract a lot of people who want to talk about how karma is doing it to them. Somebody's doing it to them. And they think that being spiritual is to awaken to some hidden, dark conspiracy to control you. and it's done at the highest levels of everything, and they think that's spirituality. And I say, no, there's no victims here. Even if there are, I don't care. I'm not saying that conspiracies don't exist. They do. They always have. There's always somebody trying to do something to somebody somewhere. Taxes and the religion. I mean, yeah, I know. Come on. It's obvious. But I say, so what? Nobody can do anything to you without your conscious or unconscious permission. Not only that, but if you're being controlled, it's because you want to be controlled. You've been asking for it, or you wouldn't have manifested it. People get all bent out of shape. When I tell them, but you're missing the point. If you chose to be imprisoned, it means you can choose to be free. It means you can choose to be everything and anything you can imagine, but you have to take responsibility for it. That's the part that'll disturb you. Do not stop seeking. When somebody is seeking and won't stop until they've found for themselves the truth, until they, not somebody else. Somebody else can see the light. Great, you saw the light. I haven't found it yet. I'm not going to stop until I find it. I'll die before I stop looking for the truth and finding my truth. And when you find it, it's going to be one of the most frightening experiences of your life, if not the most frightening experience. So going from the beginning, Jesus said, those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. So this is a process. If you are somebody that you are upset, angry, sad, suicidal, homicidal because you don't know what the truth is, because you feel like they're doing it to you, because you feel this emptiness within you, and whatever you've done hasn't worked, good for you. That's exactly where you're supposed to be, because you have to be motivated to keep seeking until you find, and you won't stop. That means if you, fine, you're going to divorce me, fine. You're going to reject me, fine. You're not going to love me anymore. I have to live in a box on the street. Whatever the hell it takes, I'm going to keep seeking my enlightenment, my happiness until I find. And when you find, you will first be disturbed. You won't like it. It'll frighten you. It'll anger you. It'll sadden you. It'll disappoint you, because it won't be what you're expecting. What you're expecting is to find some big parent in the sky that's going to pick you up and wipe your butt for you, to make you happy, to fill you with love. I mean, what do they say, when you accept Jesus? I had this experience as a kid. You pray the sinner's prayer and you accept Jesus and you feel this love go through you and this bliss, and that's what you want. You want something outside of you to come and magically touch you and make you feel something. And you'll feel connected, and you'll be like a little infant wrapped up in diapers. Why do you think Jesus is an infant? Why do you think people worship the infant Jesus? It's a projection. It's what people want. They want to be the innocent little infant that is being taken care of. That's what you want. That's what you're looking for. And when you don't find that, it's going to be very disturbing, very disappointing, very frightening. And then you will marvel. So after you're disturbed and after you realize there is no big God out there, there's nothing bigger than you. You're it. I'm it, and I'm sitting here in squalor and misery and physical pain. Oh my God, that's horrible. And then, when you start to take full responsibility for your life, and life starts acting as though everything is coming together exactly for you, this weird experience happens when you live from full responsibility. Things start lining up, and the universe starts seemingly taking you to different places and, taking care of you. And you're like, but that's exactly what I just realized was not going to happen. I'm fully responsible. And then all of a sudden, everything lines up. And then you start to marvel at, as the Taoists talk about, when you put no effort in, everything happens. When strength is no strength. When you put no effort into something, you master it. And it's this weird koan, you marvel, you don't understand what's going on. So those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. You'll go through life, the stereotype of the spiritually enlightened saint who doesn't have any possessions and beams with radiance and light and eternal youth and just goes through life. And that's what Jesus walking on water is supposed to represent. Water represents emotions. Whenever you dream that you're drowning, it's a dream that you feel overwhelmed by your own emotions. You're drowning on them. So Jesus walking on the water peacefully is a symbol of the self-empowered person who flows through life and seemingly is not disturbed by anything around them. They have this aura about them where no matter what's going on around them, nothing seems to touch them. Again, that was the symbol of, that when Jesus gets confronted by the crowd and he just walks through them and they part ways. The parting of the Red Sea. Moses parts the Red Sea. What is the Red Sea? The ocean. He parts the ocean, meaning that you can walk through. These symbols are all there because that is what we all yearn for. The problem is not worshiping Moses or worshiping Jehovah or worshiping Jesus. No, go and be that. Go and part the Red Sea yourself. Go and walk on water yourself. That's what they're saying, which is why, my book, Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. Read that, where Odin said to me, I died to myself. I sacrificed myself to myself. That's what that I'm giving you the example of what you're supposed to do. Jesus did the opposite. He died for everybody else. What an idiot. Not only that, how destructive. Looking down on humans with such disdain. I'll die for you. Odin says, no, I died to myself. You can do the same. When you go through this process and die to yourself, then you see the mysteries of the universe. All right, let's see hang on one second here. Just want to double check to see what's happening in the virtual world here. Where are you? We've got a few people. We've got 29 people watching. Okay, great. So Gert Van Zyl, she wrote the question anyway, so I'll get to that later. So again, write the questions and I'll be happy to answer them. Let's keep going. Sorry, Gert, I thought you were going to do something I asked you not to do, but it looks like you almost did what I asked you to do. You're starting to pay a little bit of attention. I'll get to your comment later. What else? Where were we? 3, Jesus said, quote, if your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is within you and it is outside of you. Now, you haven't heard that second part. You've heard the kingdom of God is within you. You hear that all the time, but that's not the verse. The kingdom of God is within you and it is outside of you. That's a very shamanic statement right there. But I want to talk about more things here. So even this, I'm reading this translation, and here people can't help, but they have to throw in the assumptions. They have to editorialize, even when they're translating it. And this translator is no different, because he inserts in parentheses, he puts Father in front of kingdom. So he says, look, the Father's kingdom is in the sky. Rather, the Father's kingdom is within you. That's not what I see here. That's not, if he has to insert that, it means he thinks you're too stupid to understand what he's talking about. He's talking about the Father's kingdom. It doesn't say that. It says the kingdom. What kingdom are we talking about? That's the question. So heaven. People tell you that there's a place called heaven. And when you die, you go to heaven. Talking about the sky. So the heavenly Father, the kingdom of the, that whole thing. So the person who's writing this has to throw that in there because he can't help but put that in, and he wants you to buy into that too. But, then we have to start seeing, what does the kingdom mean? Obviously, he's not, if he meant to say the Father's kingdom, he would have put the word Father in there. I don't think he did. Jesus said, if your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom is in the sky, or if you listen to this guy, look, the Father's kingdom. Changes everything when it's the Father's kingdom. That's something outside of you. You are giving away your power to something outside of you. You're little, the Father is big. That changes everything. You take that out, it's just the kingdom. But let's get now to what this is trying to say. So what I'm trying to do also is I'm trying to get you to look at your assumptions that you throw into these verses. You don't realize you have been hypnotized and you've been primed to have certain projections that you project onto these early Gnostic beliefs that weren't necessarily there. Because, it's very difficult to know, this is one of my biggest criticisms with neo-shamanism, neo-paganism, neo-heathenism especially. Because people are picking up mythologies, pre-Christian mythologies, and they're reading it thinking that they're able to read it without bias, but they don't realize the assumptions that they've been wired with. And so that's why I say, just because, this is why so many of the neo-pagans and neo-heathens have a problem with me, because I don't buy into a lot of the things that they say. In fact, I say the exact opposite of a lot of things that they say. They think that they're reading these myths and this is what that means, and they don't realize that they've got all this Christian programming, this dualist Christian monotheist programming, and it's so deeply ingrained in them that they just project it onto Odin. They turn Odin into God. They turn Balder into Jesus, and things like that. So it's part of what I want you to do is to be able to look at, oh my God, I've been imposing onto this text this whole time something that wasn't there. So the whole idea of the Father's kingdom, that's a presumption that's not here. It's just the kingdom. So let's get to what it means now. So if your leaders say to you, look, the kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you, because the birds are already in the sky. If they say to you, it's in the sea, then the fish will precede you. We can look at it symbolically. If it's in the sky, meaning your higher self. Oh, I've got to get in my higher self. So many people that come onto my channel want me to tell them how to open their third eye, because they think that if they open their third eye, they'll somehow be able to see, or whatever it is they think is going to happen. I said, what makes you think opening your third eye is going to do anything for you? Even if you see the energetic nature of things, that's not going to change you. It doesn't mean anything. That's the idea of it's in the sky. We have to go beyond the earth, which is Gnostic. The earth is bad. Your physical experience is bad. Your physical instincts are bad. We have to get past the bad things and go to the spiritual. It's a rejection of the self. It's a form of spiritual suicide. You're wanting to end yourself. You hate yourself so much you want to escape into the non-physical. Because you believe that, you on an unconscious level, you hate yourself so much, you need to escape. That's why when people say they want to escape the matrix, they want to escape themselves. But you're going to take yourself wherever you go. So this is saying, it's not outside of you in your ethereal higher self. That's not where the kingdom is. And it says, if they say to you it's in the sea, then the fish will precede you. So if we look at what the ocean is your instincts, your emotions. So if people say to you, no, it's not about meditation and going, it's about just being in your instincts and your emotions and just doing whatever your passions, whatever impulse flies through you. That's what you do. He says, well, if you do that, then the fish are going to precede you. Rather, the kingdom is within you and it is outside of you. The kingdom is in heaven and it is in the ocean and it is inside of you. That's the shamanic part. Shamanism, the reason why I identify as a shaman, by the way, shamanism doesn't mean that you take entheogens and trip out. That's not what shamanism means. Some shamans do that, but that's not shamanism. Playing drums, I play drums. I do shamanic journeying. That's not shamanism. Shamanism is living in a dynamic balance, internally and externally. There's a dynamic balance of internal and external. And when you have that, you can say you're in a shamanic state of balance, but it's never permanent. The weather always changes. The dynamic balance of the consciousness. Everything has consciousness. The trees, the birds, the sky, the earth, you, your thoughts, beliefs, everything has consciousness. And the idea is to be in a dynamic state of balance with all the consciousness that surrounds you. That is inside of you and outside of you. So basically he's saying stop looking for heaven. It's not inside or outside of you. It's both and neither at the same time. He goes on to say in this same verse, when you know yourselves, then you will be known. And you will understand that you are the children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. Beautiful. Beautiful. Just destroys anything having to do with religiosity. When you know yourselves, then you will be known. So on the face of it, I think people are thinking about being known by God. And that's what a lot of people go to religion. They want God to know them. Oh, God is with you. It's such a ridiculous thing to say. Oh, God is with that person. What, mean God isn't with somebody else? God isn't with the other homeless, alcoholic? But he's with the other guy, but he's not with him. What does that mean? What kind of a God is that? So what, he's separate from his own creation? Obviously that's what that means. He's separate from his own creation. Which is why, again, the whole idea of worshiping something outside of you is just a waste of time. When you know yourselves, then you will be known. If you want to say known by God, what does that indicate? It indicates you're God. Because if you don't know yourselves, you're not known by God. That means God can't know you if you don't know who you are. What does that mean? God isn't God. Because if God was the way they say God is, then God knows you even when you don't know yourself. He's saying, no, you don't know yourself, you're never going to be known. But on a practical level, it means that when you know yourselves, other people will know you. You will experience being known, being seen, being loved, being valued, being heard. As I've said before, every single one of those people who stormed the Capitol on the 6th were people who weren't trying to overthrow the government, weren't trying to, get Trump, put back on the throne. That's not what they were doing. They thought that's what they were doing. But what they were really doing is they wanted to be heard. They found the most powerful place that they saw as what was controlling them. And they wanted that body. They were seeking out the most powerful politicians who, in their eyes, were making all of the decisions that affect their lives. And they wanted those people to see them and hear them. What it really means is they wanted mommy and daddy to love them. They wanted God to love them. They wanted to be known. When you go onto dating sites and you see so many people write, I just want somebody to love me for who I am. Well, that means people aren't loving you for who you are. If that's the case, you don't know who you are. Because if you knew who you were, people would love you. You would feel loved and known, even if people didn't get you. you would still feel loved and known. You would not be dependent on somebody else's thoughts or feelings or opinions. At the same time, when you do know yourself, then those people who also know themselves will be more aligned with you. And then people who don't have an agenda, people who don't have a projection, are the people who can love you for who you are. And then, so on a practical level, if you know yourself, then other people will know you. And you will understand that you are the children of the living Father. So yeah, to me, that's, again, part of that, early religious thing. So like I said, there are some things about this I don't vibe with. You will understand you're the children of the living Father. And to me, I say that you will understand that you are one with your own soul, because your own soul is God. So if you know yourself, you'll be known, and you will understand that you are God. I don't like the idea of being children of the living Father. I don't like that. That's just me personally. If you want to look at it that way and enjoy it, go right ahead. And then he goes on to say, but if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. So, those of you who are actually poor, again, a lot of people who come onto my channel have money issues. And that causes a problem, because if they want to work with me or subscribe to, some of the higher level practices, they're going to have to pay money, either for my time or for the teaching, or even if it's just the, a few dollars a month for the subscription. But there are people that tell me they can't afford $25 a month. I'm like, seriously, you can't find $25? I mean, are you homeless? How are you not able to find $25 a month? That's the lowest level of subscription. People always want to make deals with me. What if I give you this and do that for you? Will you let me have access to the subscription channel? It's like, no. First off, I don't control that. That's done by Patreon. But secondly, no. Why would I do that? My job is to help you. So how am I helping you if I don't help you to become self-sufficient? So when you want something bad enough, you will find a way. But if you are the poverty, it won't matter what I or anybody else do. Nothing outside of you is going to take your poverty away. A good example is, you get your basic redneck who wins the lottery, right? Wins $50 million in the lottery or something like that. I mean, and the percentage is that, the large percentage of those people, I don't know what it is, but a large percentage of those people end up not only broke, but in debt. How the hell did that happen? It's because they are the poverty. Money isn't going to give you anything. But if you are the prosperity, because it says you are the poverty, it means you're also the prosperity. If you are in touch with your true self, then you have everything, which means that you will be rich. What does that mean? I don't know. It doesn't mean having a lot of money, because there's people with billions of dollars who can't find health, happiness, or love. Look at Michael Jackson, the way he died. Even assuming that he wasn't, what he was accused of doing. The guy ended up, ODing on the most powerful narcotic that you can find, because he was the poverty within himself. No amount of fame, no amount of money, no amount of love and adulation and adoration, none of it made him comfortable in his own skin. That's just, you want me to keep going with all the celebrities? By the way, as I'm thinking about it, I find it really interesting that, as soon as somebody becomes a celebrity, all of a sudden they're a reptilian. Anybody that has success, and is successful, all of a sudden, they're a reptilian. But if they're poor and miserable, then they're a real person. That's that, obviously I don't buy into the whole reptilian nonsense. So if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty. You create poverty. You will continue to create poverty. It won't matter how much money I or anybody else gives you. You will create the poverty. And the poverty is you. But the flip side of that is when you do know yourselves, then you live in prosperity. And the prosperity is you. Again, same scenario. You could have somebody who knows themselves, who doesn't maybe even have any money, but lives really comfortably. And this is what, when I teach you about how to find your soul desire, your soul desire is going to be everything. Now, if your soul desire is to live in a 20-room mansion with a bunch of servants, then go after it. That's usually not the case. Most people think money will bring them happiness, and it doesn't. So they think they want to live in a mansion, but that's not what their soul wants. But if your soul wants to live in a cottage in the woods and have your own garden and have a spouse and a cat and a dog and whatever else you do, and if you're doing those things that your soul loves, you will be the richest person on the planet. Like for me, like I can be honest, if I sit here right now and I say, what more do I need? If I'm really honest, the things that I need are just slight adjustments. I need a different surfboard. I want the waves to be a little better. When the waves get good, they get bad. But in terms of, what I need in terms of, if I think about it like everybody else, I'm going to want X amount of money in the bank because that'll make me feel safe. But the truth is, regardless of how much money I do or don't have in the bank, I have the life that I want. I have exactly what I fantasized about a couple of years ago when I did that process of what is it that I want. And I created a fantasy world that didn't exist, that wasn't possible. And I said, I want that. I'm living that. So it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you know yourself, if you're following your soul, what you manifest out of your soul will be the prosperity, whether it's being a billionaire or whether it's, having $10 to your name. Again, billionaires are billionaires in the hospital dying of diseases, and there are people that have no money and no insurance, and they're living very happy, and the universe gives them whatever they need from one moment to the next, from one day to the next. So if you are the prosperity, if you know yourself, you live in prosperity, and you are the prosperity. But it's interesting, it doesn't say that. It says, if you do not know yourselves, then you live in poverty, and you are the poverty. Because this spiritual teachings are talking to people who need that. They need to shift and grow. The people who know themselves already know that. And they don't need to be told that they're the prosperity because they know that. The person who doesn't know that is the person who doesn't know themselves and is living in all kinds of poverty. And they don't realize that they themselves are the poverty. Okay, we only got through 3 verses. Let's get to the 4th one. Again, I haven't prepared this. I'm just reading it spontaneously. Like I said, if I like it, I talk about it. If I don't, I say that sounds like nonsense. I'm not trying to tell you that this is a truth. This is an interesting text, but I don't see it as, I don't look at it as the Word of God or anything like that. I don't even look at it as mythology, to be honest with you. There are some really good things in here. All right, so number 4 says, Jesus said, quote, "The person old in days won't hesitate to ask a little child 7 days old about the place of life, and that person will live. For many of the first will be last and will become a single one." All right, so I don't know what the hell that means. I kind of like the idea that this is telling us about reincarnation, because this is something that is true. When you talk to lots of little kids, they'll start telling you what heaven was like. Lots of little kids will remember their past lives. And as they get older, they start to forget. And some of this has been documented in some really amazing ways. So that just means, as we start to get old, and people start to get old, they start thinking about going back to, their previous manifestation, which was out of this 3-dimensional matrix and back into a multi-dimensional place of being. So there's probably some deeper things in that. It's got some cute things about the innocence of children and some other stuff we could, I think, over dramatize, which I'm not going to do. But like I said, I'm just telling you what I see here. I'm not necessarily saying this is the ultimate, but there's some really good stuff in here. Let's see what else. Here's one that seems fairly obvious. Number 5, Jesus said, quote, "Know what is in front of your face, and what is hidden from you will be disclosed to you. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed." Now, you're listening to that, and what you hear is that God is going to reveal your soul to the world, therefore you shouldn't sin, and you can't keep any of your sins hidden secret inside of you because God will embarrass you in front of the whole world. That's what I hear when I read it, because that's what they taught me in church. That when the last judgment comes and God reveals your inner desires to the rest of the universe, and you will be filled with shame and taken off to hell. Or if your heart was truly connected to Jesus, then it will be revealed that you are a true follower. In fact, there's one verse where Jesus says, in the other, not in this, but in the other Gospels, where people come to Jesus and they say, "Lord, Lord, I cast out demons in your name, and I fed the poor and I healed people." To which Jesus says, "Get away from me, I never knew you." And that's used as a way to shame people who are false followers and all that. That's what a lot of people are going to hear when they read this. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed. I have a different understanding of that. I don't know if you can hear me over the rain. It's raining outside. But my understanding of that is different. My understanding of that is that you can't hide from yourself. That in your unconscious mind, you have your unconscious thoughts, feelings, motives. The only thing that I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm going to tell you. The only thing that differentiates you, assuming you're not an enlightened being. If you're an enlightened being, then I'm not talking about you. Or if you don't know yourself fully yet. The only difference between you and the fully enlightened master isn't that the master doesn't have selfish motivations. It doesn't mean that the master doesn't have revenge or hatred or the desire to take advantage of others or steal. It doesn't mean that. It means that he knows that about himself. And since he knows that about himself, he knows what the real source of his motivations are. And he knows how to take positive action towards himself and towards you. Your experience of them is, "Oh my God, they're so pure and so loving." Well, no, that's great. They treat you well and you are empowered and they're empowered, but they may have the exact same feelings that you do. The difference is you're not aware of it. And worst of all, you judge yourself for it. So let's pick stealing. Let's say somebody is a con man and a thief. The difference between the con man who goes out and steals and then feels guilty about it and hides it is that he was judging himself. He was judging himself because judgment is telling yourself that you don't deserve things, that you aren't taken care of by the universe. The person who judges themselves does not believe the universe loves them. If you believe that the universe loves you, then you don't judge yourself for any of your thoughts or feelings. And when you're not judging yourself for your thoughts or your feelings, you don't have to act on them. This is the irony. If you stuff things down and judge yourself and judge your thoughts and your feelings and your desires as wrong or evil or bad, you will act out on them, usually passive-aggressively. Or you'll act out on them and then you'll feel guilty and that'll create more of a desire to hide. Whereas if this is what the idea of confession is about when you go to the priest and confess. The idea of that is, not that I'm saying that works, but the idea is to be honest. so that you can be honest and go, oh my God, yeah, I totally want to do it with my neighbor's wife. She's so hot. Oh my God, she's so hot. And if you confess it and get honest with it, you'll go, but you know what? I deserve love. And there's somebody out there that will love me. It's just that she kind of reminds me of my mom in some weird way. And I think that's what that's really about. And yeah, so, I'm not going to follow through on that. But if you judge yourself for it and you stuff it down and you beat yourself up, then it makes the desire even more intense. And then when you see your neighbor's wife walking around, you're going to find a reason to go over and talk to her. And she's sad one day and really things are bad between you and your husband. And why don't you come over and we'll have some tea? And the next thing you know, you're walking around self-righteously saying, I'm going to take you away from that evil guy. And then you're this sinful guy who's cheated, But it's all because you weren't willing to look at yourself. You judged yourself. You won't look at yourself if you judge yourself. So there's nothing hidden that won't be revealed. Not because when you go to heaven, God is going to pull out the books and reveal to the whole world what a horrible person you are. It's just that you can't avoid acting out on it. I talked about disease earlier. And I said disease is when your conflict, your self-directed negativity, your inability to love and accept yourself in all of your thoughts, feelings, desires, and impulses. Your inability to do that means that you stuff it down and it gets lodged in your tissues somewhere. Next thing you know, you have some kind of age-related or some other immune response. There's a lot of people that I've run into, like there's some of those diseases that we can't figure out what causes it, like fibromyalgia. Well, you also find that to a person, everybody with fibromyalgia also has some kind of really intense psychological trauma that they're trying to deal with. When you don't look at it, it reveals itself through the body. The body will reveal what is really going on. Your actions will eventually reveal what's really going on under the surface. You're passive aggressive and you don't know why people don't want to be around you. You end up acting out your unconscious issues. So everything will be revealed. But again, it doesn't say it's going to happen in heaven at the judgment. It just says this is just the way things are. All right, so let me take a break here and see if there are any questions. We'll get to some of those. So let me get, where's that? Where's the page I want? There we go. All right, so Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello, and if you want to get a reading from him, I believe he's got a 35% discount. Is that right? Something like that? He's got a big discount on Vedic astrology readings. You can go to his website, which is Vincent.thunderwizard.com. He says hello. All right, Paladin Zephazor. That's a cool name. I don't take that question seriously. If you are seriously asking me a question, and you do ask a serious question, I will respond. I'm this close to blocking you because I think you're just fucking with me, but we'll see. Gert Van Zyl, question. So, Gert, do me a favor, write question in all caps. I'm doing this because I want to hear that you're listening to me. My experience with Gert, she's been around for a while and she doesn't listen to my instructions. I'm still not sure that she does any of the things that I recommend, but looks like she's trying. So she asked questions. So if God created the world, who created him? Gert, I mean, what is this? That's not an honest question, seriously. You've been on my channel long enough to know that, first off, you're not asking me an honest question, and I don't teach anything like that. So, Gert, I'm disappointed. You haven't shown that you've listened to what I've said. You haven't taken me seriously. All right, what else? Don't get me wrong. Gert's been around for a while. If you're new to my channel and you ask me an honest question, even if I don't like the question, that's okay. But Gert, you've been around. You know better. Ask questions about what I'm teaching. Never did I say God created the world. So you're not really asking me a question. You're throwing out something you think it sounds cute. You want to sound good. And that's not really what I want from you. I want an honest question or experience from you. So, Livity Jim, if you're new to the channel, if you write the word question, I'll answer it. I don't know if this is a question or not. But one of the things is I recommend people should ask an honest question or they should leave an honest feeling. But if you're new to the channel and you just start dumping an opinion, as would be understandable because that's what happens on most people's channels when there's a live stream chat. That's not what I do. So you put a target on your head when you say something, especially if I know that you're new to the channel or if I sense something unconscious, I'm going to go after it. And I'm going to do that with yours. It's nothing personal. But you said, I always thought if one could trace back to the oldest religion. So again, let me tell you about how one of the first things that I teach. So if somebody signs up at thunderwizard.com, even at the basest level, the lowest level, the first thing I'm going to teach you is about assumptions. So it's impossible to have a discussion without having an assumption, about a shared assumption. But it's also impossible to live without unconsciously throwing your presumptions and assumptions onto the world. It colors everything. And your base assumption about what life is and who you are and your relationship to the world and any subject will determine what happens. If you have an incorrect or incomplete assumption, that means that every conclusion after that is going to be incorrect or incomplete. So I think you've got an assumption here. Your assumption is, to your credit, you say, I always thought if one could trace back to the oldest religion that is available today, one would have the closest thing to the original teachings from the Golden Age. Huge amount of assumptions there. So your assumption is that there was a Golden Age. Again, a lot of people have this. The farther back we go in time, the closer we get to the truth. Why is that true? Time is an illusion. So why are we further away from the truth than they were 1,000 or 100,000 years ago? That's an assumption. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. But now you've thrown out an assumption, and now if that assumption isn't accurate, then your conclusion is going to be disappointing. First off, was there a golden age? Is there a difference between the golden age and now? Do you have any less access to reality now than you did then? This is a great thing that religions can use to control you, because they'll say, well, these original teachings come from a time when human beings were connected to the universe, and so I've mastered these things, and you should listen to me and be a part of that, and all of that takes away your power. And then you have to follow that person to get that thing, and then I'm part of the such and such. That's all an assumption. We don't know whether that's true or not. Maybe it is. I mean, I teach in the 90-day challenge, I'm teaching a sacred tradition that's been kept secret for a couple thousand years. So I could fall into that category as well. As I'm listening to myself, I'm like, that sounds like me too. So it doesn't mean that that's wrong, but it's still an assumption. And that's why I challenge people who say, prove it to me. And I say, how do I prove it to you? And they say, oh, give me some ancient text. And I say, oh, so as long as somebody wrote it a long time ago, you'll believe them, but you won't believe me because I'm not, 10,000 years old. So you just take other people's word for it. So that's an assumption. If it happened in the Golden Age, then it would be the true religion. But we don't know that. I mean, the farther back we go in time, we get to monkeys. Our ancestors were apes. And, if you want to find out what it was like, go watch chimpanzees tear each other apart. They're really cruel. They can be really cute and loving, but they can also just be horrifically cruel and, cannibalistic and all kinds of things. So that doesn't mean anything. Okay, my interpretation. All right, so I didn't ask for it. But let's see, do I want to look at this? My interpretation, children of the Father equals soul fractals of the original source from which we all seed from. So you don't think very highly of yourself then. What? You say, what? I just said that I'm a fractal of the original source. What if that to me sounds pretty demeaning. That sounds like a pretty uncomfortable place to be. I don't want to be a fractal. I want to be the source. Maybe we could look at it that way. You are the source. I'm saying you are it. You don't need to fractalize yourself. I'm saying you're it. And it doesn't have to be the original. It doesn't have to be the Father. It's you What if God is you? One experience I had years back when I was meditating is I had a vision that I was floating outside of my body, and I was really tiny, and my body was huge. And I was floating around my body, and my body was in the stars, in the universe. And the feeling I got was, when you look up in the stars, you're not looking outside of yourself, you're looking inside yourself. That when you worship a deity, whether it's God or Jesus or Buddha or Rama or Krishna or whomever, when you worship a deity, that deity is privileged to reconnect with you. You're not a fractal. The gods are a fractal of you. That's why polytheism is so self-empowering. Because when you worship Rama, you're worshiping your soul. When you worship Kali, you're worshiping the feminine aspect within yourself that destroys negativity. When you worship Hanuman, you're worshiping your life force energy that seeks to protect the soul. I mean, you're worshiping yourself. When you do a ritual and you pray to a deity, and you based on by the way, Vincent.thunderwizard.com, if you go there, he'll show you based on your astrology the perfect direction, the perfect deity, the perfect offering, because that's the part of you that you've manifest that you want to empower. You're empowering yourself. You're not pulled away from some source. You are the source. And the gods are the fractals of you that you're bringing back into yourself. Waldis Perez, that's my take. You said your interpretation, this is my interpretation. Waldis Perez, question. People who can keep their heads empty, any tips for that? Is that really a question? You can go ahead and write out a full question with a subject and an adjective and a verb, and put some punctuation in there. So you want to know. I mean, first you make kind of a half statement. People who can keep their heads empty. It's not a question. Any tips for that? There's an assumption. Who said that you're supposed to keep your head empty? I didn't say that. This is a very common trivialization of meditation. Because if you ask the average person, what is meditation? They go, oh, isn't that emptying the mind? No. Nope. If you're lucky, the end result of the meditation will be that you will have a mind connected to emptiness. If you're lucky, that will be the result. But that again is the presumption that being spiritual means you don't have any problems or issues. And that's not accurate. Meditation, is about, if we're talking about Zen meditation, about meditation of emptying the mind, is really about not emptying the mind, but by observing all the garbage that comes to the surface. And to ask yourself, wow, where did that thought come from? Where is that feeling coming from? The meditation is an exercise, so when you're out in public and somebody walks in front of you and you have this overwhelming urge to slap them across the face, and you're like, what the hell is that all about? You have the ability to have the feeling and the impulse and take constructive action, and then you'll be closer to figuring out where those thoughts really came from. So I don't have any tips for you about how to empty your head, because I don't have any desire to have you empty anything. I'm interested in you learning to see and accept and experience everything and work through all of it. Asking me to give you tips on how to empty your head could mean you're asking me to help you suppress your thoughts and your feelings. And so that's why people take drugs, so that they can have an experience of their head being empty, but all they've done is they've taken all their feelings and pushed them down, which means they will come out passive-aggressively or destructively. So I wouldn't give you a tip on how to do that, even if I could. My tip for you is to seek to be fully conscious of all of your thoughts, feelings, and impulses, and then learn how to tolerate that and then take constructive action for yourself. And then you'll get to understand why you had that thought, why you had that feeling. You know, when you were 10 years old, your mom said this to you, and that makes you think these thoughts and have certain feelings, and then you don't have to have it control you. So again, your assumption is, you come onto my channel, that that's what I'm going to teach you. This is why it's good to listen to what I'm teaching and only ask me about things I teach. You don't know that, you're new to the channel, so. But that's what I tell people. Don't waste your time asking me a question until you've listened to what I've said. And then I'll be more inclined to answer your question, because otherwise it means you're not listening to me. You're coming with your own, which we all do, you're coming with your own agenda. And I don't want your agenda in my space. My space right now is I'm sharing this teaching. You don't like it, go somewhere else so we can help you. Ask me a question about what I'm talking about. I'll be really interested in talking about that. Having said that, you can ask whatever question you want. What else? Okay, so Vincent says, for a limited time, save 30% on Vedic astrology readings. Yeah, 30%. So he's giving a 30% discount at his name, which is vincent.thunderwizard.com. Lushka. Q. You can go ahead and write question if you want. I might miss that Q. That's why I ask people specifically to write out the word question in all caps, because as I'm scrolling through, I want to see that. That's not a guarantee I'll see it. But you ask, Q, where did these original texts from Thomas come from if it has no relation to Christianity? I didn't say that. This is in one of the original Christian Gnostic Gospels. Does the Sophia myth have any validity whatsoever? I don't know. Again, I'm not teaching anything about the Sophia myth, so I can't talk about things I don't know anything about. What else? Raido Sawo, question. In your book, so I have books. If you don't know, you can go to courses.thunderwizard.com and you'll see all my stuff, including my books, or you can go to Amazon and type in my name, Michael William Denny, and you'll see my books in there. So he says, in your book, The Thunder Wizard Path, which is the second book I wrote, on page 141, you say, I am a follower of the Gnostic teachings of Jesus. So my question is, do you still follow the Gnostic Jesus? So Raido Sawal, thank you for bringing that up. I have many times, even when I've read that book, so you haven't watched the videos of me talking about that book, I have, if you don't want to read my books, you can find videos on my channel of me talking about them. Meaning I read the books that I wrote and then I comment. And if I have a different belief now than I did, that was over 10 years ago, then I tell you. So obviously my thoughts have changed. When I wrote that book, I was part of the typical New Agey, assumption that, oh, there was an original teaching of Jesus and this modern Christianity, and I don't believe that anymore. So to answer your question, I do not follow the Gnostic Jesus. In fact, I think Gnosticism is just as destructive as, let me say it to you better this way. Catholicism and fundamentalist Christianity are the natural evolution of Gnosticism. If you take Gnosticism seriously, you're going to end up being a born-again Christian. So you know how I feel about born-again Christianity. So I think Gnosticism is a religion for victims. It's incredibly destructive. I won't talk about it now, but I've talked about it in other videos. All right, so we can stop there. I don't see any more questions. Before I end, I'm just going to go ahead and play a short video explaining to you one of the main things. So here's the thing I like about this. The thing I like about the Gospel of Thomas is that in many of the verses there, the point is, you are God. You are self-empowered. And I want you to completely shift your paradigm about who you are and your relationship to the universe. Because if you understand this, you will never buy into another victim mentality ever again. If you understand that your soul, that here living in your heart center, inside this meat bag virtual reality suit, is the infinity of the universe. So it says the kingdom of God is within. It doesn't say the kingdom of God, it says the kingdom. Oh, was that a bat? I don't see bats during the day. Bats here are enormous. The bats aren't little bats. The bats are like German shepherds with wings. They're huge. So I got distracted. So your soul is the infinite God. That light that people talk about when they die and they go to a light or they feel pulled towards a light. And if they get into the light is filled with love and bliss, and they come back. If they come back into the body, they say, I saw God. That happened to me when I was 7 and I was a Christian, so I came back and said, I saw Jesus. It wasn't until decades later that I went, but wait, I didn't actually, it was just a light. It didn't say who or what it was. I just assumed it was Jesus. But that light is nothing other than my own soul. All I did was I just connected, completely to my soul. When you die, according to the Buddhists, they say that the first thing that happens is there's this light. And if you are fearless, if you have no self-condemnation, and you have no fear, I would say if you have no victim mentality, or if you're able to, in that instant, to overcome your fear, your limitation, your victim mentality, then you become one with the light, and you don't incarnate again. But if there is a moment where you have doubt or fear, then all of a sudden you're pulled back into the myriad different types of physical life that you are then reincarnated into. Now, I'm not saying that's true or not. I believe in that. That was my experience. My experience was that I went back to my soul. And I'll tell you, that light, when you go into it and you let it pull you in, you disintegrate. So what happened was that I was disintegrated into this light of bliss, and it was frightening. The bliss was so intense. It was like a full soul orgasm. It was just the most intensely blissful experience, and it was frightening for a split second until I relaxed and let it happen, and then my whole body just sort of like exploded and disappeared. Sort of like, this is why I like this picture of, if I can find it here. This is why I like this picture of Dr. Manhattan. Where is he? Or this video of Dr. Manhattan. Hopefully I can find him. Where is he? He should be up here somewhere. If I don't find him, I'll move past to whatever. But this is what it feels like. This is what it felt like to me when I merged with that light. It felt like this at first. You had to die to it, and then you had to let it take you apart. And then you were just one with this light. And then you get to come back. You get to reconstitute yourself. So the question was, when did Dr. Manhattan become immortal? Was he always that way, or did he just realize it? So that idea of the purity of the light, this is why you should never listen to that nonsense that says false beings of light and stay away from the light. That's your fear. That's how people become reincarnated. Is the moment that they die, that light, which is their soul, which is God, because they themselves are God, that light starts to pull them in, and the fear of dying to their limitations becomes overwhelming, and then they start looking for another way to incarnate again. So that light sits here in your soul, that light which is your soul sits here in your heart. And if you are able to bypass all of the limitations and the distractions of trying to be something in this limited world, and just be who you are, to live from your truest essence. When you can do that, my experience is that life becomes like this video game. And you just learn how to pull the levers. You never really lose any of the challenges and issues, and it's a dynamic balance, but that's been my experience. It's taken me 57 years to come to that experience and that conclusion. So what I teach you here on the 90-day challenge is I teach you a physical practice which stimulates the meridians that go directly to the container that holds your soul. And this is different from regular Qigong. It's different from the chakra system, from Kundalini, although those things are connected and you can use all three of them, which I actually teach you in that as well. But you can just simply pull the levers which stimulate different meridians, which will start to release the power that holds your soul separate from physical reality. And then you have to go through the transformation of really living from your soul. But when you can do that, and you will have to confront your conflicts, meaning the conflict between your human self and your spirit. You're going to have to go through the conflicts of wanting people to love you and accept you and be part of society and have fame and money and safety. You're going to have to deal with the conflict between that and your soul, which says, no, I'm everything. And here's what I really want. I don't want that other stuff. I want this, whatever that is for you. And when you can do that, my experience is you gain more power, you gain more prosperity, you gain more peace, you gain, all the things that you've been looking for in other things you find in God, which is really you. So I really have a problem with the idea that God is outside of you, because my experience is that's just not accurate. You're God, but you are your soul. You're not this. You're your soul. So that practice is one way to do that. You can check that out, thunderwizard.com. Click around for Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. I see another. So what I was going to say is that you need two things in order to really tap into that power, because when you tap into that power, the human body, the nervous system, and the meridians, sometimes they have to adjust. And so it can be really powerful. So in order to get your body, your physical body, and your meridians prepared, there are two things that I recommend. And one is Celestial Qigong. So I'm going to play for you that so you can know what that is. And then if you want, you can make that part of your practice. People ask me, should I get both? And I say, yeah, you should. Do you have to? No, you don't have to. You can do either one of them by themselves. But if you want to get to the really powerful stuff that we're going to be doing, it's helpful for you to have both the Celestial Qigong and the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong together. So here's the Celestial Qigong. Hi, I'm Michael Denny of SpiritTao.com, and this is Celestial Negung Part 1. Celestial Negung means that this is power that is descending from heaven. And the idea is that we are all microcosms of the entire universe. You are the entire universe, and everything around you is simply the projection. You are looking within yourself. So when you look up into the stars at night, you're actually looking deep within your own body. When you look at the sun, the moon, the trees, the flowers, you're looking within yourself. This is Negung. And so what we're doing is we're simply releasing that infinity from within us. You are tapping into and releasing the power that is within our own body, our own cells, our own organs. So one of the reasons that I'm making this DVD is in the hope that the essence and the spirit of the teaching of the Shang Qing arts can be taught to the world at large, and it is my hope that the core essence of what the Shang Qing tradition is will continue to live and grow and evolve. As we move on into the Aquarian age, everything is changing. I don't need to tell you that. The entire world is changing, and what we are seeing now is that if people hold on to external things, they are very challenged in life. And those who are making the transition into the next phase that we are moving into in the world as we approach 2012, those who look within and find their source of strength from within. Those are the people who are getting the most out of life and will make the transition into the next phase of evolution most comfortably. It is my belief that the Shang-Qing tradition is one method whereby human beings can evolve into the next level of being in the most comfortable fashion and be able to take advantage of the rapid, energetic, mental, and spiritual changes that are going on in the world today. Okay, that was 11 or 12 years ago. Hard to believe. Okay, so that is something that I recommend. If you want to check that out, you can go to spirittao.com. No, do not spell check for me. You can go to spirittao.com, or if you want to get it free as part of another package, you can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com, and you can get it there for free. So you can go to those places and get it. And then I recommend that you merge that with the Warrior 90-day Lightning Qigong. You can watch videos about that. I won't get into that. So, and Raido Salwell says, question, and this, from the same book on the same page, I'm not in any way disagreeing with what I believe to be right. So why are you, just a repetition? I've already told you that I've changed my thoughts about that. So I've obviously changed my thought about that too. I'm not in any way disagreeing with what I believe to be the actual message and purpose of the good news originally preached by the man Jesus. I obviously don't believe that anymore. So, I mean, anything more than I need to say? No, I don't believe that at all. I've totally shifted and changed my mind about that. Livity Jim, question. You say that God/deity is only a fractal of us. No, I didn't say that. You said that. Or somebody said that. I didn't say that. I never said that. That's interesting. That's interesting that you say that I said that. I encourage you to go back and watch this whole thing again and find where I said that we are a fractal of God. I never said that. That's interesting that you projected that onto them. So that's okay. That's what we do. That's kind of what I'm pointing out, is we project our assumptions onto things that people say, because our brain does that. It tries to make sense of things. So that means that assumption is really deeply held within you. Perhaps it means that when you heard me say that you are God, what you heard was that I said that you are a fractal of God. I didn't say that. Let's see. You say that God deity is only a fractal of us. Oh, I thought, sorry, I misread that. Okay, so I did say that. My apologies. You say that comes back to us as a God. That God deity is only a fractal of us that comes back to us as a God. So again, you are putting a spin on it that I didn't say. You're putting your interpretation on it, but that's only natural. Can you explain a little more about this? Never thought of it that way before. So I did say that God deity is only a fractal of us, but I was saying that in response to the assumption of the flip side, which is we are a fractal of God. So I was using the same language to flip it on its head, but I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that God is a fractal of us, because there's an assumption that there's, the God of the Bible, the Jehovah of the Bible. It's an approximation when I say you are God. I don't mean that you are Jehovah. I don't mean that you are the creator that is separate from the universe. I will even say you're more powerful than God. And you say that I said that God deity is only a fractal of us that comes back to us as a God. So do you hear the repackaging of that? You've repackaged what I said, understandably, in a way that seems to fit in what sounds like your programming of how things should be. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the gods, including Jehovah, that the gods are fractals of you. You are the light that's going through the prism, and as the light goes through the prism and creates all of the different shades of light, those are the gods. The thing about Jehovah, the word God, when people throw out the word God, they mean Jehovah. They mean the creator God, the monotheist God of the Abrahamic tradition. That interpretation of God did not exist until after 350 something BC, when the elites and the priests of Judea that were taken captive by the Babylonians for 70 years, they came back with a new religion. The archaeological record is very clear that the Judeans, who are the children of Israel, when the Judeans were identifying themselves as the Jews, that even in that time, first off, they were the Canaanites. They were the descendants of the Canaanite people, and that they were polytheists. They were polytheists who worshipped a sky father and an earth mother and a fertility deity, and they had all the deities and all that. They had the same polytheist religion as everybody around them. They worshipped Baal, Baal. They worshipped all these gods that now Christianity uses and throws around as evil demons. They were part of the Canaanite tradition. And the whole nonsense of the children of Israel being enslaved by Egypt and then freeing themselves, and Moses and Joshua coming back to the land of their, coming back and defeating and destroying the Canaanites is nonsense. The Canaanites were the ancestors of the Jews. The Jews were just the evolution of the Canaanite people. They were one tribe of the Canaanite people. So when somebody uses the word God, they mean Jehovah. Jehovah was a god of smelting. He was a god that was used by the Canaanite smelters in the desert, who used to go and dig for, copper or whatever it was, and smelt and create, not steel. What was before steel? You know what I'm talking about. Bronze. They were bronze smelters, and the god of the volcanoes and that was Jehovah, which is why Jehovah is in a burning bush, because the Midianites, the Canaanite tribe people who did that, worshiped Jehovah. So the Judeans adopted that Canaanite deity as the deity of the state of Israel. And they believed as long as you kept the fire, because he's a fire god, as long as you kept the fire going to the patron saint of the Canaanite Israelites, that he would protect them. And he didn't. The elites stopped paying their taxes to the Babylonians. The Babylonians came in and wiped out the temple and put out the flame. And the elites and the priests went off into captivity. And while they were in captivity, they went, holy crap, what happened? We must have pissed off Jehovah. Maybe we shouldn't worship any other gods. Jehovah's a jealous God. And then they rewrote this whole thing that totally didn't exist, about how, they were led out of Israel and they destroyed the Canaanites. They destroyed themselves. The Canaanites are the Jews. The Jews are the Canaanites. They just became monotheists. So I'm giving you all that because when people say the word God, they think that there was this original monotheist religion that can be traced back thousands of years, and it can't. The monotheist religion was an invention of these returning elites who wanted to create a government, and they used the religion, the worship of Jehovah. They didn't even say that other gods didn't exist. They just said, you can't worship any other gods than our state religion God. And if you do, we'll put you to death. That later then morphed into there aren't any other gods, there's only one God in the universe, the Creator God. And that's not even what Genesis says. Genesis, when you read it, and God said, let us go down, that is actually, in the Hebrew, it says the Elohim, the council of the gods said, let us go down. They morphed in later and turned it into something else. So this idea, the idea that you say that I said, you have to understand the imposition that you're putting onto it. That isn't there. So saying that we are fractals of God or God is a fractal of us, the word God is loaded with that idea that there's just this one creator God. And that isn't what has been believed for billions of years. When you hear the same translation of God in, like when you hear Hindus do it, for example. Like Hindus throw around the word God all the time. They say, oh, I believe in God, or, I worship God. And they don't mean the same thing that you do. They don't mean one single soul creator God. Even if they're talking about Vishnu, and Vishnu created, or if they're talking about Prajapati, or if they're talking about, even if they talk about Shiva and Shiva is the one God, they're still not seeing it the same way you do as a Westerner who sees this one creator God who hates every other deity, who hates every other religion. You don't know that that's what you're saying every time you say the word God, even if you're wanting to be a Hindu. Even if you're going to yoga class and you worship Shiva or especially Krishna, you don't know that you're imposing onto that Krishna is Jehovah, who is the one and only God and there aren't any others. It's a completely new concept. So that's not what I'm saying. Even though I flipped it on its head, I'm not saying that God, Jehovah, the Creator God, is a fractal of us. And I'm certainly not saying we are a fractal of the one God. I'm not saying that. You have to live in a completely different place. I love the physics experiment that says that light is neither a particle or a wave, it's both and neither at the same time. A very famous experiment where they tried to figure out, is light a particle or a wave? And they set up an experiment, and the experiment came back that light is a particle or a wave depending on the intention of the observer. They redid that same experiment more recently with more advanced technology, and they said not only is light not a particle and a wave, it turns itself into a particle or a wave after the fact. After it has passed through whatever it passes through, if you're looking for it to be a particle, it goes back into time and creates the evidence that makes it look like a particle. If you're looking at it to see it as a wave, after it passes through, it looks at you and says, oh, you want me to be a wave? And it goes back in time and it creates the evidence to make it look like it's a wave. That's when I use the word God, you have to use it in that sense. How can I be an individual sitting here talking to you from my Mahadeva individual perspective? How can I be that? And at the same time, how can I be the infinite God where even Jehovah must bow down and serve me? And at the same time, how is that also true for you? How is it true that I am nothing more than your projection? I am a reflection of something inside of you. You found this channel because you, as the deity, the only deity that exists, you're having this vision of a limited reality, and you've created this experience for yourself. And in that experience, you have manifested me. And you're listening to yourself talk through my mouth. I am nothing more than something you created in this moment. How can that be true? And it also be true that I can't see you, but if I were to see you, you are nothing but my own projection. How can both of those things be true? That's where you need to go. God is here to serve you. Jehovah, I am that I am, is nothing more than the human ego, the human narcissistic ego. So when people, that's why people who worship Jehovah are sexist, racist, warmongering, judgmental assholes. That's why. That's why no matter how much love you try and give Jesus, you know, Christians are the most destructive, hateful, you know, group of people on the planet. Because you can't cover it up. You can't put, you know, you can't put perfume on shit. You know, the narcissistic ego, even if it says, I love you so much, here, I'll prove it to you. I'm going to ritualistically murder my innocent son who has done nothing wrong so that you'll feel so guilty that you'll believe in him, which means you'll love me. I'll prove to you that I'm a, you know, I mean, it just, you know, he's a narcissist. A narcissist can't, has nothing to come from to create anything good. I love you so much that I did this, and if you don't fucking love me after I ritualistically murdered the only being that truly knows me, if you still don't love me, then I'm going to throw you in hell. That's how much I love you. That's what God is. When people use the word God, that's what they're talking about. So, you should be confused by what I'm saying. I'm trying to blow open that whole box of God. I know that I'm blaspheming. I mean, there's parts of me when I say the things that I say that cringe. Especially when I say things like, God is here to serve you. All right, let's see what else. Raido Sawal, and yes, I've read Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. I've read most of your books more than once. Just wanted to ask you for clarity in your evolution on your path. Yeah, so, yep, that was 10 or 12 years ago. And to be honest, I was struggling with what was being, you know, transmitted through me. And I was buying into all that. And as time went on, I started looking more and more deeply into it. And I said, no, man, this is ridiculous. And to the point where I am now. Let's see what else. So now I say quite the opposite. I say there's no way to even have any possible interpretation of Jesus without being self-destructive. It's not possible. Because you can't separate Jesus from the narcissistic, you know, because the whole Jesus religion, it really shows narcissism. Like if you look at narcissistic personality disorder, Jehovah has narcissistic personality disorder. And Jesus is an inverted narcissist. So there's a thing called an inverted or a covert narcissist, which means somebody who is a victim who seeks to gain people's love by being a doormat, but then uses what they do for you in order to take you hostage through guilt. And that's how they get all of their attention. And that's exactly what Jesus is. I mean, Jesus is this pathetic creature dying on a cross. He died for you. You better fucking believe in him or you're a horrible person. And how can you not? Jesus died for you. Yeah, we know God's Jehovah, God the Father is this narcissistic asshole. We all know that. But Jesus is all love, and you better fucking love him, even though you didn't ask, even though you didn't say, hey, Jesus, will you die for me? He did it for you whether you like it or not. So if you don't accept what he did, you know, unilaterally without your input, even though he did that without your input, if you don't accept that, you're going to go to hell. It's narcissism, no matter how you look at it. It's just the codependence narcissism dance. It's just that's why the world is the way it is. It's just the most fucked up possible religion you could create. Which is interesting, you know, Satanists are more loving than Christians. You know, how does that happen? All right, let's see what else. All right, so there's not a question there. All right, that's it. No more questions? All right, have I blown your mind or given you some other unpleasant feeling, perhaps I've done my job. So, thunderwizard.com, again, is the 90-day challenge. Click around. You can subscribe at whatever level you want. You just go and check it out. I won't sell you on it now. But what I'm really working on now is we're getting to level 3, or phase 3 of the 90-day challenge, which is we're getting to the place where you can tap into this infinity within you. You don't believe me? Listen to some of the comments people are leaving about it. Completely transforming. And we're getting into phase 3 coming up. I don't know exactly when, but it'll be coming, where we tap into the power of creation. You're really going to have to let go of your limited self. The great thing is you do the practice and your limited self starts coming apart. And it's just a question of whether you choose to continue with the practice or not. You can stop the practice. A lot of people don't, that I've taught, they just stop because they can't tolerate the transformation. And that's fine. But the idea is you become completely connected to yourself to such a degree that you have an internal locus of reality, which is you determine your life. Nothing outside of you does anything to you. You determine it. So you can check that out. Energyhealing.thunderwizard.com if you want an energy transmission from me. And there's a meditation that I give you along with that you do that together. You can check that out. Energyhealing.thunderwizard.com. Again, subscribe and hit the bell button. Smash the like button. And take these videos and put them on your Facebook, your Twitter. Put this out there on your social media so more and more people can find this channel that want to. Okay, is there more questions that have popped up? Let's see, what else? So, Livity Jim, I believe you. You're saying that you practice Buddhism and Zazen, and when you say God, you don't mean it as a Westerner. But I want to challenge you to go even more deeply. Remember what I said earlier, what I was saying earlier about I found that neo-pagans, neo-heathens, they don't realize that they are transferring and projecting the limited Western understanding onto non- or pre-Christian concepts. So I don't think it's possible for somebody to just decide one day that they don't believe that, even if they weren't brought up religious. I still think that all of us can go even more deep. I'm willing to bet if you have the willingness to even meditate on it, to go more deep about what does God mean to you, you'll find that you have some of these assumptions and limitations about God. So you don't need to prove anything to me. I'm not judging you. I don't even know you. I can't even see your face. So you don't need to double down and prove to me what you really meant. It doesn't matter whether you did mean it or don't mean it, because my opinion is meaningless. But I want to challenge you to go even more deeply. If there was something that you said that stimulated me to talk about it, it means at the very least there's some slight, perhaps, maybe it's all my projection, but there might be some slight vibrancy in that on an unconscious level. So go even more deeply. Okay, very good. Valerie agrees with me. So all right, that's it. Enough for the time being. And thank you all. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you when I see you.